Nice to meet you, Mr. Louis.
Nice to meet you again, Johnny Lee. Nice to see you here in Korea.
Yes, what a surprise that I see you in this place, like very cozy, and your big product, new product. Anyway, it's very huge. I really love it. So I think it's the first time to get YouTube video in Korea. So maybe also some people didn't know about your Kronos, brand. So maybe you first talking yourself and your career, and later we focus on Discovery product. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm very glad that you could tune in, and I'm very happy to see Johnny Lee. Johnny and I have known each other 10 years now?
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
And we first met, I think, in Los Angeles.
Maybe she is.
I think so, in Los Angeles at the LA show. Anyway, this was a while ago. Mm-hmm. And so to talk to you a little bit, my name is Louis Dejardins, as you know. I'm the CEO and designer of Kronos Audio. Mm. We're here in Korea to officially launch the Discovery. It's already been here in Korea for a while. Mm. And the new RS Tone Arms, which is a new development at Kronos.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm curious about your background, your career first.
Well, I studied arts and science. I studied partly in physics and partly in optics, wave science, which is very important to designing turntables. And I worked many years in the photography field.
Photography. Yeah.
So this was my connection with optics. And later on, I always liked the audio since I was very young, most audiophiles. And maybe 20 years ago, I got back into the analog turntable hobby. And I was making many experiments, and one day came the idea of doing a suspended turntable that would have no torque force induced vibrations. Yeah. And the idea of counter rotation came to me. Mm-hmm. And the rest is pretty much history, because once I had this idea and I saw the logic of it in the Newtonian second law, that for every action, a reaction of equal size. Mm-hmm. It made sense to me to nail the torque force. We needed a secondary platter of the same mass turning in the opposite direction. Yeah. And the rest was history, in the sense that I built a prototype. We had great performance upgrade because of that. And then I started showing it at shows, and Kronos was up and running.
Yeah. So maybe it's the date, maybe back to 2011, you first debut your turntable.
That's right. Yeah. My first debut was in 2011. And the first CES show I did, the first international show I did was CES.
CES.
With the Lam Industries group. And we met either at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, so we met right at the beginning, really.
Yeah. But at the time, we are not very good. But after the LA show, we are more get close, and we are talking about making not only for audio, we are talking about the life philosophy and everything. So we are get close, I think. Is it right?
Yes, well, Johnny has got a very interesting point of view of life. He's a philosopher. He's somebody that studied Buddhism, studied Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy. So it was great that he could introduce me to some of the thinking of the East, because I spend a lot of time what we call the East, because we come from the West. Yeah. But I spent a lot of time in Asia, And it's very helpful to me to have a little bit of an insight as to what makes Asian society what it is, really.
Yeah. So I think your favorite country is Korea anyway. So will you explain me why do you like Korea?
We were talking about this before. I was telling him that when I come to Korea, I feel at home. The first place where Kronos was introduced in Asia was Korea. The first customer ever for Kronos was Mr. Chung of Silvertone. So Mr. Chung was the first person who bought a Kronos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of all the customers, he was number one, and he's the major collector of Western electric equipment.
He was a world famous guy.
Very famous in audio. And so it was an honor. But what I was saying why I like Korea so much is that Korea is really the pinnacle of the Asian efficient society. There is a modernity, there is a sense of striving to excellence in Korea, and a dedication to the pursuit of a higher performance in everything that I feel Koreans are doing. And the development, of course, of Korea is the proof of that. Everybody knows that in the early 50s, Korea could be the second poorest country in the world. And today is a major industrial force in the global economy. So the advancement, the hard work of Korean, you can see in everyday life, but the results also express very well. They've achieved great success in everything they do.
Thank you. So let's talk about the Discovery turntable. So how long does it take to get the R&D and your major development for that?
Well, when we made the Kronos Pro, we were limited to a certain number because it's a limited edition, and slowly the numbers were creeping up. Where we were seeing that we had to have a new model coming out. I did not just want to make a cosmetic change and call it something else. I wanted the engineering advancement. So this research was always in the back of my mind. The actual idea came about 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
And then to build the prototype took about 2 years. And thanks to COVID, COVID has had very many bad parts to it.
But you don't have any playing time. Just stuck in the room and
exactly. Being stuck at home for 3 years meant that I could spend much more time with the Discovery than I had with previous models. Once I had the prototype to really fine-tune it and improve it to the level of obsession because I had nothing else to do. And I'm very happy to be able to travel today and share the result of this work. So why do you make this product named like a Discovery? Is there any reason? Yes, there is a fundamental understanding, new understanding that came to me when making this turntable. So the first Kronos big leap was the counter-rotation principle. That was the big leap. Now, in the case of Discovery, the big leap is what we call soft clamping.
Soft clamping.
So soft clamping is a way to assemble parts together in not a hard way or very tight, way, but a little bit more relaxed way. We call it soft clamping because the clamping of parts is done in a soft way. And when we do this, we can tune what they call the Q, the resonance factor of the materials. And in the assembly, we can achieve an assembly that takes energy that goes through it or bounces back from it, lowering the amplitude, okay? And let's say in transmission, lowering the amplitude of what's transmitted, controlling the decay, having the least amount of resonance, and we can adjust the frequency peak of this assembly. So by using different materials in combination, and then by assembling them with the soft clamping, we can optimize this result. And this has a big impact on the sound of a record player, because a record player is a device that must read vibrations but not have any parasitic vibration of its own.
So maybe you take many, consider and research for changing materials and finding new materials and combine together. Yeah.
Exactly. And then with tuning the clamping, we can really optimize the assembly performance.
Okay. Yeah. So also, why do you make your brand name as Kronos? Kronos have any meaning for that?
Well, Kronos originally was in Greek mythology as a Titan,
Titan,
the father of Zeus and all the other gods. And Kronos was basically the Titan of time, the god of time, time itself.
God of time,
And to me, the analog reproduction is a way to take a performance, freeze it in time, and then to preserve it for the future. But once in the future, listening to very good analog reproduction, you feel you're transported back in time at the moment of the original recording. So let's say we think about Elvis Presley at Sun Records, you can be transported back in the studio of Sun Records in 1957, or you can be transported back to a great symphonic performance of, let's say, Bruno Walters performing Beethoven, for instance, or a great pianist, a great violinist. So basically, I've designed the turntables as an archival retrieval device.
It's just like time machine.
A time machine, exactly.
That's good. That's very good explanation, and I think you're a good talker anyway.
Well, I think I've got a lot of time to think.
Yeah. And yes, the design is very brilliant and also very functional. What's the your major concept of your design for this product?
Well, as I said, we still have at the top the same turntable idea of counter rotation with the suspension. The suspension on this has been slightly modified to give a little bit more damping on the vertical. We had most of the isolation on the horizontal, but now we have more on the vertical, so it's a better compromise, I think. The first display here shows the speed of the platters, and we have a new
speed of platter.
That's right. We have a new drive computer. We now use double CPU, and we've achieved, before we were in the 0.02 plus or minus 0.02 wow in flutter, which was good for a belt drive turntable, but now we're at 0.0015, 15 times smaller wow or drift error, 15 times smaller drift error, which competes with direct drive turntables. So the accuracy is by far increased, and the jitter is actually also decreased because this dual action computer, dual output going to the motor means that the motors don't interfere with each other with the back EMF. Under this, the second display you're seeing is a new developed supercapacitor DC accumulator. This is used, it's very high capacitance, very high power reserve, very low impedance to better control the motors and to achieve this improved drive system. Now this supercapacitor power supply is optional. So somebody who might want to buy in two parts, they can do that very easily. Underneath, we still have the phono stage. The reference, Kronos reference phono stage with its power supply to the phono stage is under there. And somewhere hidden, there's the power supply to the SCPS unit that is a similar box to this box, but that's not on this rack right now. What's on this shelf is the airtight preamp that they're using for the system right now, but the power supply is somewhat tucked away somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. And on top, there are two tone arms on the Discovery you can put,
over there.
And on the right is the new Discovery RS tone arm, our flagship tone arm, and behind is the Chronoscope RS tone arm. Now the RS stands for resonance suppressor, which is a new technology we've developed for the tone arm, and we have 2 patents applied on this tone arm. So we're talking about completely new technology.
So RS tone arm is the top model of your product in tone arm.
We have the RS tone arm is we have. Both tone arms are RS. One is called Chronoscope RS, which is a lower model. The higher model is Discovery RS.
Discovery RS. So this one is Discovery RS.
That's right, Discovery RS. So RS is what we call resonance suppressor. So all the time, what I was talking about self-clamping was about decreasing the amount of resonance in the materials and to make everything quieter. And this is what we have a patent on. And the edge shell also has some resonance suppressing built into it. So yeah, very exciting technology. We've been presenting this all over the world, and it's gotten rave reviews so far.
Also, can you describe the difference between Discovery and the Kronos Pro?
Yes, well, basically the difference is that we're talking about the soft clamping, which is applied here in the structure. This structure here of the turntable is what ties in the suspension to the plinth system is the new technology. The other thing is the platters are now centralized. Before they were on one side. I think that's also an improvement, and the fact that you can put 2 tone arms means that the turntable is wider. It looks quite big, but it's only 15 centimeter wider than the Kronos Pro was. So the size is still quite reasonable.
Yeah, and also maybe the price will be very different.
The retail price, international specified price for Discovery is 100,000. So it's 2.5 times higher. But I was making a little calculation the other day, and we're having pressures right now because of the supply chain. One has to understand that in this part alone, from here up, there's about 300 machine parts and 600 fasteners to keep everything together. So we're talking about a very complex assembly. That takes our production cycle now. When I tell our suppliers we're making 25 units, our production cycle now, before we get all the parts so we can start assemble, is between 12 and 18 months. So we're talking about a very long production cycle, a lot of money tied in to get everything started, and a lot of parts, a lot of quality control, a lot of... the project management on Discovery is at least 3 times more than on the Pro.
So your vendors are from everywhere, like USA and Canada?
Everything is built in Canada.
Everything is built here. All the vendors are from Canada.
We buy the what?
All the vendors?
Yeah, all the vendors. Well, the electric motors we use on the turntable come from Switzerland, from the Maxon company. But I mean, chips, the electronics come from different suppliers, but the assembly is made in Canada, and all the machine parts, all the assembly is Canadian built. So, yeah.
So, Canada has just like a background like that for mechanical thing. We just only know about the Canada as like a oil and gas supplier for world.
Well, you're right about the fact that there's a lot of natural resources in Canada. Canada is a small country, only 40 million people. So it's not a huge country with a lot of natural resources, a lot of space. But in Canada is a company called Bombardier, which made public transit projects all over the world. So and the Canadair Bombardier airplanes. So Canada is also a manufacturer of high-tech products, high-tech mechanical products. Montreal is a very strong city in industrial machining, one of the best cities in industrial machining. It's not as well known as, let's say, Japan or Germany, because we make in Canada fewer commercial or consumer products, more industrial products.
Okay, so that you have a very good background for Kronos turntable in Montreal City.
Infrastructure, that's right. The difficulty we have, and I'm very open and honest with you, the difficulty in Canada is a little bit in the finishing department. They have much more infrastructure in finishing department in Japan, let's say, or in Korea, or in Switzerland or Germany, but our cost of machining is very interesting for the customer. So today you have, I was in Munich and maybe they had 4 or 5 turntables above 300K, which is crazy. I mean, I think 100K is already high enough. And but we can make this at 100K because we have a very efficient infrastructure in Montreal for machining.
Yeah, sometimes I'm really surprised too. When I go to Munich show and lots of big turntables, and I cannot find the new technology inside of that. So sometimes I'm disappointing for.
Well, this of course I'm going to be preaching for my product, but. For sure, we've been looking at the fundamental of physics. I find much more than other companies might have. So our goal is not to make a product we can sell, is to make the best reproduction available to people. And this is my obsession. This is why I get up in the morning. This is why who I talk to and what I do depends on that goal. And I'm 100% focused on this mission. So
also I'm curious about your record collection. Do you have many records in your home?
I have about 4,000 LPs.
4,000 LPs.
Which is not crazy. I mean, some people have like, I don't know how many, 30,000 records or something. I try to keep the number not so big because I find that over 4,000 it becomes a little bit confusing. But so I try to when I get new records to get some out that might not be as good, but I have to say that the wealth of what's available on vinyl, either from new pressings or either from buying records from the past, the quality of music we can get is unbelievable. And there are still some really good deals to be found in out there. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The Royal Ballet RCA first edition.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You got the first edition?
I have first edition, and I bought this first edition for $5.
Really?
And this now is like $3,000. So it's possible to find these really rare gems that are sonically unbelievable. I would say that when you compare the first edition to the reissues are not at the level of the first edition. But a lot of reissues are actually really, really good. Yeah. So especially in jazz, some are better than the originals in some cases.
Yes, sir. So LP is, I think, most crazy and passionate hobby. So every LP is different, like a recording date or like a label or the history of the musician. Everything is different, and it's not easy to find the right timbre or right identity of the LP. So I think your work is very incredible. That not just the reproduction of your sound, also to catch up the musicality of the LP is very, very important. Yeah.
Well, what's very interesting is that the amount of loss in the signal from the moment that they take the master tape on the mastering machine at the production level, when they and the cutting of the lacquer, there's very, very small loss. It's almost 100% transfer. I have brought with me a lacquer, and the sound is unbelievable. Now, when they press the record, there's not that much loss either. There is some loss at that point, but it's not so much. So I would venture to say that with a good LP playback system, let's say such as the Discovery, of course not everybody can afford this, but even starting from the Sparta, we're opening the door to get very close to what the mastering engineer was hearing. Very close. And this much closer, I think, than if you copy a tape and then you pay this tape on another tape machine or R2R machine back home. I think there's more loss in that than you have in a high quality LP playback. The storage in the LP is the best storage medium that exists. So if you get an LP that's 60 years old, if it's been not damaged, if it's been just played normally, it is very resistant to aging. So it's a very good archival medium. And so for those reasons, I think that LP playback has been always at the center of the music lovers' arsenal of tools, and we're happy to be able to contribute to that.
For the new Kronos customer, that you have a very the entry level product is a rigid type. Also, it's also very good for new starter for LP.
Our lowest level product is not rigid, still has the suspension, it's the Sparta. Now, we do have the Sparta 0.5, which has only one platter, but it's convertible to two platters, but all our turntables have suspension.
Suspension, not rigid.
Now, I would say that Sparta 0.5, I think the retail USD is about 15 or 16,000 is not so much entry level. It's still an expensive product. It's good value though. I think it will be better than most turntables available, and it's fully convertible to the full two platter Sparta. Now, my daughter has a project turntable. I don't want to do publicity for project necessarily, but she has a project. But whether it's a project or Rega or something else that is a good buy, not too expensive, is a very good way for people to start in the LP collection. I think the important part is to get as many people as possible to collect LPs because this is a very exciting medium. I find that when people build a tangible, a physical LP collection, they become more attached to the hobby of audio because they have the pride of ownership of their collection. I think when you have digital files, it's more of an intangible, abstract notion. You don't physically hold the music. And you know, with LPs, you say, oh, I remember when I bought this LP, the first time I listened to this LP, who I was with. There's a very nice attachment to music. A little bit like you have an attachment to books when you actually own a hard copy of the book. So I think the more people get into analog and LPs, the nicer it is. Our specialty is making the best possible. Now, other manufacturers are good industrialists and they can make something for everybody at a lower level, and that's perfectly acceptable to me. You know, I mean, of course, but it's not our specialty.
I was trying to answer the final question that the virtue of Kronos, but you already answered for that.
Oh,
I don't have to ask anything about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for giving your precious time for this show.
Thank you, Johnny Lee.
Nice to meet you again.
Nice to see you.
Hope that you got a good response for this discovery product in Korea. Maybe many people will curious about that Kronos turntable. So it's very, very historical and a meaningful meeting for this show. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody that tuned in today. And if we have a chance to meet at the Korean Audio Show, I will be very happy. You can also friend me on Facebook, louis.desjardins.71. I'm easy to find if you just do a search on Kronos turntable. But I will be very happy to friend you. And you can see all the news as it happens, and be safe, be well, and enjoy music.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johnny.
Yeah.